All right, now we are back, and we have a wonderful guest in Mr. Shawn Knoche from the Odds Breakers. You can follow him on Twitter at the Great Knoche. Shawn, how the heck you been, man? We are in football season. We got week 4 in the NFL. We had a blast in Vegas about a month ago. How you doing?
Doing great. Thank you very much. Having a great start to the NFL season. We're still getting college turned around. We had a rough first 2 weeks there, but everything last weekend was great. First big profitable weekend in both college and NFL where we hit big time in both sports. So looking to continue that trend the rest of the year.
Yeah, we both had a wonderful weekend last week, so we like that. Let's keep that going, my man. And wow, there is just so much going on with these lines here. I'm looking at the Packers for Thursday night. They are already 2.5 point dogs. It's like this teaser like keeps getting bigger and bigger, and like if it hits 3, you're like, what the hell? Some Detroit money coming in. Is that scaring you?
Yeah, I actually hit the teaser line too early. I thought it'd go the other direction with news of the Packers maybe getting healthier, but we're still waiting on that. So I ended up hitting the teaser because I was worried it was at 1.5 and it was going to shrink down there, and I wasn't going to get that 7.5 on it. So I actually ended up getting lesser value there, but I'm staying away from this game straight up. I want to lean to the Lions here. Even laying the 2.5 here, it's getting up there. I think there's a superior team. I think they've got better talent, and they've certainly shown that in most of the games here. The Seattle one being the aberration. Last week that defense really got after Atlanta. Didn't allow them to do a whole heck of a lot. And I think with the Packers running game in question, without knowing if Aaron Jones is playing, I think they'd be able to lock up the pack as well. But division game, Packers are still the home team, and everything always seems to come up roses for the Packers in Green Bay, especially against the Lions, with the exception, of course, of the last game of last season. So I got the Packers on a teaser leg, but I'm staying away from the rest of it.
No doubt, it's a good teaser. Total's not too high at 45. I understand the line going up for Detroit because you have a quarterback that's proven, and you have a quarterback that's really unproven with Love. I mean, say what you want. Love's done fine, and he's done a good job. But I think LaFleur's putting him in some good situations too. And it feels like the gas might run out pretty quick on him. He was showing some signs last week of missing receivers and stuff like that. Now, if Christian Watson's back and if Aaron Jones is back, I bet you this drops down to 2 again. I think, Lions -2 would be a fair number if that's the case. What sucks for me, Shawn, is that my numbers are close. I mean, I have this kind of close to Lions -1-ish, 1 to 1.5. And I'm talking not just my power rate. I'm talking about my algorithm as well. There's nothing really that says I should be running out to this, I still have a lot of faith in the Packers just because they're very well built around the quarterback. I'm just not sure if Jones, their best receiver and their best running back, it's just like it's so hard when you have a rookie quarterback, the best receiver back and best running back is hurt. And even with the rookie quarterback, you're facing a much improved Lions team that put a whipping on Kansas City and should have beat Seattle if it wasn't for that pick 6. But I got nothing but the prop play I released today on that, dude.
How are your prop plays doing this year, Kiev?
Yeah, I just was talking about that. I'm happy to be 6-0, but I'm actually really 6-2. The 6-0 was the TikTok props, but I did 2 other props that I did lose in, so it's not perfect. But it's going good on TikTok.
Release them all on TikTok.
You're right. Just blow TikTok up, and maybe I'll be an influencer someday. Yeah, right. I wish the sports betting community was as big as some of these people, just watching people do stupid shit. I mean, why are they not watching to make money? Come on. Jeez.
Yeah, we got Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift. They're not paying attention to the Odds Breakers TikTok when that stuff's going on. We gotta get her on board, get her following the Odds Breakers TikTok. We'll be all set to go.
Yeah. Maybe they'll do an interview. I'll have my publicist get on next week, Shawn. So we'll see what happens with that. Let's move on to Sunday's games, my man. And my screen, of course, just went dark. Oh, there it goes. It's back. We start in London because Jacksonville is being Jacksonville again, and they are going to their second home, which should be their first home from what everybody thinks. And I guess I kind of think the same thing too. But Jacksonville's laying is -3, and you got a little juice to that in most books, -115, -120. There's not a lot of flat threes out there. It's hard for me to get on Jacksonville. I mean, like I kind of came into this week Shawn. I was thinking that this wouldn't be at 3. I just thought with the way that Jacksonville lost to Houston, with the way they lost to Kansas City, when they lost by 8, not covering that, they would be like a 2-point favorite here or 1-point favorite against Atlanta. And here they are as 3 with the little juice. And I mean, it tells you it's probably the right side. And Jacksonville's got to get their head out of their ass in some situations. They're having a lot of bad luck, in my opinion. There's just like fullbacks running special teams touchdowns back and stuff. But at the same time, Atlanta, if they just get control of any game, and this is in London, it's probably a bad soccer field they're playing on, right? They could just hold on to the lead with guys like Bijan Robinson, dinking and ducking to Kyle Pitts. This is a live betting situation. Whoever scores first, I think I might probably try to put a little bit of money on the team that scores first, Shawn.
Yeah, for me, this is really a showcase of the have-nots here, and it's 2 different parts for me. On the Atlanta side, Desmond Ridder, I just don't trust. In the game last week against Detroit, where he had a lot of pressure coming off the edge, and he couldn't get outside and scramble and make some plays with his feet, he really struggled. And the fact that they were down the whole game kind of took that Robinson edge away from him, especially in the running game. I think he only had 2 touches on the ground in the second half there. So I don't trust Ridder, and I don't trust that Atlanta offense. I think their defense is good enough to keep him in pretty much every game. And they were in that Lions game until the last, 10 minutes of the fourth quarter still. But for me on the Jacksonville side, I think this team, everybody came into the season thinking this team was going to run away with the South, right? Rookie quarterback in Houston and Indianapolis, Tennessee going the wrong direction. So this was kind of the team that everybody kind of thought was going to dominate the South and come out and bang some teams, especially after making the playoffs and getting that comeback win last year. And I think that's where this line's kind of moving from, actually. And why it's at that -3 and pushing is that public perception is still on Jacksonville as a much better team, having made the playoffs and having all that hype from the offseason. I think some of those bets are coming in heavier on them, especially starting off here. If I had to pick a team, I'm playing Atlanta and taking the points just because I want the points in this situation with 2 teams where I trust their defense more than their offense right now. So it could be one of those games where you get a pick 6 or a fumble at the end that switches it the other direction. And that's kind of where I'm leaning, but I'm not touching this one. I think something's screwy with this one, and I don't trust it, so I'm staying away. I won't be up there.
Not in Wisconsin, buddy. After a Badger Saturday. Well, I have 2 conflicting numbers. My power ratings is -4.5, or -4.25, and then my algorithm says pick them. And here's what are you going to trust now? This is almost starting to get into week 4 when your real data, the algorithm, whether the guessing with power ratings is starting to be a little bit more important. So I'm in a conflict here, so I'm probably staying away here. I don't even want to tease Atlanta side because I think if Atlanta gets behind, they really will get behind. So unless Atlanta's at home as a dog, that's a situation where I don't want to tease them. Let's move on to the Washington Commanders versus the Philadelphia Eagles. And the Eagles are -8. The total is 43.5. I think we're picking up some background noise over there. It stops when you talk, though, Shawn.
Well, there's no sound going around me right now, so maybe it's just my heavy breathing. I did get out of a cold a couple weeks ago, but it hasn't quite got out of my system yet, so maybe that's it. For this one, I think Philly's kind of just been laying in the weeds the first couple weeks, and they showed what they can do last week with that dominating defensive performance and getting themselves right a little bit. I was a little bit higher on Washington coming into the season than what they've shown so far. That Denver game, they probably shouldn't have been able to pull that one out. And coming in here, I think this number's right on. I had it right at 8.5. I think it opened a little lower than that and kind of pushed up to 8.5 now. But I think Philly's the dominant team here. I think Sam Howell's got a lot to learn yet. And with that Philly front getting after him, I think they're going to struggle to move the ball just like they did last week against that Buffalo front 7.
Sam Howell. So here's the thing. I think that my numbers say Philly by over 10, right? But my problem is my matchup metrics really think that Washington can keep this close. And the reason that is, for example, my metrics have it 12.7 on the algorithm, and my power ratings have this game at 11, right? So my problem with this game is that the front line of Philadelphia, the offensive line and defensive line are great. They call it the best in football. But what Washington has is a defensive line. That's all they have. A couple receivers, a running back, no quarterback yet that you can trust. He threw 4 picks last week, screwed me over. And they have the defensive line, in my opinion, can possibly screw up Jalen Hurts a little bit and slow down that offense of the Philadelphia Eagles. So that's the big thing. I think that the defensive line is what really factors in. And this is a division game. You're going to bet favorite over 7 points in a division game. That doesn't bode well with me, even though my numbers tell me to do it. It changes me just to think that metrically they're going to get enough push on the defensive line to screw up Hurts and screw a few things up. And they were embarrassed last week. So not my style of betting against a team that was embarrassed the week before, Shawn.
No. And like you said, if I had to bet this one straight up against the spread, it's going to be with Philly for me. But one right now, or I grabbed it as part of a teaser leg at that 8.5 to get it down to that 2.5. And I think it may push up to 9. So if you're going to get it into a teaser leg, do it now before we get to Sunday.
No, it makes sense to me. All right, sounds good. Let's move on to, and I am echoing through your microphone, just to let you know. Let's move on to the next game, which is I have the Baltimore Ravens versus the I just lost it here. My computer. Oh, Cleveland Browns. This is -3, -105 in some books. Let's pull up a Betfred odds and see where this is. Yeah, -3, -105. Shawn, I was fortunate enough to take this at Pick'em when it opened. I was appalled how this was not 2.5 or 2 at open. So I got Cleveland at Pick'em. Now it's starting to get a little higher here. But to be completely honest with you, I like the Cleveland Browns even at the 3. I think you should wait it out and get the 2.5. I think there's going to be Raven money coming in even more. I think it's going to bounce a lot between 2.5 and 3. And I suppose it's a pretty good teaser leg on the Raven side. But the truth of the matter is Cleveland's defense has been absolutely lights out, and the Ravens have been extremely injured. Their injury report is long, and they're missing, a bunch of key guys here. And I'll just go over some of those Ravens injuries. Odell Beckham missed last week. He's not participating in practice today. Rashad Bateman is not participating in practice this week. That's 2 key receivers right there. Justice Hill was present for practice, but he's a little banged up with his foot. He's another running back. Gus Edwards got banged up last week and had to leave. Then you still have Ronnie Staley. He actually returned to practice at least, but a couple safeties, Kyle Hamilton and Marcus Williams. One of them practiced, one didn't. Williams actually did practice on Wednesday. So I'm concerned. Marlon Humphrey, their cornerback, is banged up too. A couple of special teams guys. Darius Washington, their safety on injured reserve from the week before. Yeah, just not. I'm concerned for the Baltimore Ravens against this defense, who's number 1 in the league right now, and Cleveland's kind of playing some hot ball right now. I think that Cleveland probably would cover the 3. It's a weird game because normally this game is a 3-point game. 3 is as max as I would go, but I took it at 1, and I would probably take it again at 3.
Yeah, I'm a little upset with Baltimore. They knocked me out of the loser pool last week because I had the Colts being the losing team in my pool. And everything that could go wrong did in that game for them, right? The refs didn't make a call for them.
I told you to take Carolina.
You did. Talk myself out of it. But everything that could go wrong did, right? After the safety, the play calling was atrocious. The coaching wasn't great. Jackson, for some reason, stopped running the ball in the second half. I don't know why. He just sat there in the pocket and just looked like a fool. But this one, so here's the funny stat here right now. We're a couple weeks in. Yards per play defensively. This is the number 1 and number 2 team in the NFL, yards per play defensively. That being said, the gap is huge. Cleveland is a clear number 1, 3.2 yards per play, whereas Baltimore is sitting at number 2, almost a full yard behind them at 4.1. So I think the defensive units are going to shine in this one. I'm not certainly sold on Deshaun Watson, and against good defenses already, Baltimore's had some trouble moving the ball. So if I had to lean anything right here, it's actually the under in this game. Is kind of where I'm taking a look at it. I think this is going to be a low-scoring slugfest. But I think Cleveland's the right side, clearly, with all the injuries and the way Baltimore's looked. When they've gotten gotten behind the sticks and had to actually do something on offense. They have not been successful moving the ball there either. So you got the right play with Cleveland at the pick 'em. I'm not touching it at 3. Maybe if it gets down to 2.5 at game time, if it sticks around there and I'm feeling a little bit like I want to jump in on it, that's where I'll do it. But at the under's where I'm at on this game.
No, I don't disagree at all. I mean, it went down to 40.5, and I just find it hard where a lot of teams are scoring, but the under makes it so I really won't like it at 3.5. I mean, what's funny is that even though my power ratings are actually still a little bit more towards Baltimore, thinking they're the better team, the algorithm really has Cleveland a 5.7 point favorite here, just based upon their pure numbers and how they calculate up to the season. And as the season goes on, the algorithm goes more important than the actual power ratings itself. So I find that very interesting, but big spot for both of them. Big division game. We'll see who wins out. Next game, let's move on to the Denver Broncos versus the Chicago Bears. I mean, this is a 3 at Betfred. Bears a home dog to a team that just gave up 70 +3. Total 46. I mean, if you pull up other bucks here, the Bears are 3.5 at DraftKings -112. It is not hard to find a 3.5. Shawn, is this one of your hold your freaking nose and take the 3.5 type situations and just don't watch any part of the game? I'm gonna have you start first, and you can feel free to just rub it on me and my Bears and how they suck and whatever. I can take it. I'm a grown man.
They suck. My preseason write-up, this was my biggest play, was the Bears under 7.5 wins. And there was a lot of money coming in saying Justin Fields has turned the corner. The Bears roster's better. And my number one play for the season win totals was, nope, let's bury the Bears because they are not better. This is another repeat of last year for them, I think, Kiev. If they get to 5 wins, I'd be shocked. The defense looks worse than last year. Justin Fields hasn't made any sort of progression whatsoever. As much as it's take the 3.5 and hold your nose, I don't think it is. If I'm doing anything here, I'm taking Denver and I'm laying the points. Their offense is the only one of the 4 units here that's actually performed well. They're at 5.7 yards per play, and there is some garbage time in there, obviously, from last week and from trailing the Commanders and trying to catch up fast in that game too. But they've shown they can move the ball at least a little bit in some of the games, whereas the Bears haven't. So for me, if I got to jump on a side here, I'm laying the points with Denver on the road. I just don't think anything of the Bears right now. And I'm not gonna until they show me something. They're at the bottom of my power rankings and the bottom of my algorithm right now, which I thought was gonna be the Cardinals all year, but that switched rather quickly after last week. So I have to lay it, but I'm staying away.
No, the rule when two crappy teams play each other, you take the dog, especially if it's over 3.5. That's just a general rule. I'm never going to go against that because I just don't see where I could see the Bears getting right here. And they might not be better than Denver, but they can just somehow slime their way into a couple touchdowns with Fields. That could happen. I mean, they're embarrassed. Matter if Eberflus is playing for his job. I think now the Chicago Bears players are feeling like, man, we're really playing for like the future of us. I mean, there's just so much ill will going in Chicago. Now they're in Denver. Yes, but Denver is away from their city. They're in Chicago now. 3.5's a lot for this ugly game. And I'm not going to make it a contest play, but I might put a little on the Bears and just, it'll give me more energy to complain about them afterwards, Shawn. So no official play. This would maybe be a personal play, but we have another game that I missed, and it's the Cincinnati Bengals versus the Tennessee Titans. The Titans are +2.5. The total is 41, Shawn. Why don't you start with this one? You're muted too.
Let's unclick the mute button for the feedback there. There we go. Couple of teams here again that have underperformed through a few games. A lot of people thought Tennessee was going in the wrong direction. I was amongst them, but I also thought they'd be better than they've shown so far, especially on offense. They really haven't been able to move the ball at all. But neither have the Cincinnati Bengals. They're at the bottom of the yards per play scheme here at 4.0. They've had a couple of tough defensive games in there. Obviously they played the Ravens and the Browns, but maybe those two being a top defense is a function of that Bengals offense not being able to get right either. So this is a stinker game for me, much like the last one was. And I'm not really going to jump on a side here till I see if that Cincinnati offense wakes up. If I had to go something here, I'm probably looking at taking the points at the 2.5 on the home team. But this is just a stay away watch and see game again for me. I just can't get on either of these teams. And and see which way the momentum's going. And again, low total, but maybe I'd look at jumping on that under, that first half under, and seeing how long it takes one of these teams to get right on the offensive side.
No doubt, no doubt. This is one that I trust my power rating more than the actual algorithm, because if you look, Cincinnati's lost their first 2 games the last few years. Or I think one of them went to overtime. Maybe they won it. I don't know. It was, but they played like crap the first 2 games, and all of a sudden they start figuring it out. I feel like this is the same type of thing they're doing. But at the same time, what a perfect teaser leg. Titans at home, +2.5. Rough defense, got embarrassed last week at Cleveland. Cincinnati's defense is not as good as Cleveland's. So Cincinnati's also coming off a short week. Teaser leg. And this will be part of my teaser that will be given out at the end of this broadcast. Let's move on to the next game. We have the Los Angeles Rams at the Indianapolis Colts. And this is pick'em now. And the total is at 46. Now, Shawn, this game I do have a premium play for, and I'm going to give this one out. I like the Rams, and I like the Rams to win this game. The Colts were quite fraudulent last week winning that game. It was more of Baltimore just crapping all over themselves, and that ref staring at the pass interference and not calling it, screwing up Shawn Knoche's survivor pool for the 2023 NFL season. And Matt Gay hit 2 or 4 50-plus yard field goals. I mean, that's just absolutely ridiculous. But now they're going from Minshew back to Anthony Richardson. They get a win with Minshew, and they're going back to Richardson. That's just ugly all over the place. I still think the Colts have massive issues in their offensive line. I still think the Colts have massive issues on their secondary. This is a Super Bowl winning, experienced quarterback in Matt Stafford, who has found new receivers in Puka Nacua. Van Jefferson's there, a couple other guys. I really think that the Rams, coming off the loss, even though it's a shorter week, they're going to actually be the ones ready to win this week. And they played tough against Cincinnati. I like the Rams a lot in this situation. We're going to play the Rams -2 or pick them here for 2.5 stars. Shawn, what are your thoughts?
All right. So I'm not on a side, but this is also one of my top plays here. And I'm actually leaning towards the under. I got it a little bit better than where we're at right now. I think we're down to 45.5 at some books, and I did get it in at 47 early. So this is going the right direction for me for some closing line value. And here's what I'm looking at. The Rams defense is still, shown that they are a capable unit. That they shut down Seattle week 1. San Francisco's obviously got one of the top offenses in the league, and they were able to hang with them for at least a little bit. That game got up to 53, and then last week with Cincinnati on the close loss, certainly they were able to contain them. So as I look at this and I see rookie quarterback coming back in with Anthony Richardson, I don't see them being able to move the ball with a ton of effectiveness. And on the other side, Indianapolis, well, like you said, Baltimore caught every bad break in the book, and Indianapolis caught every good one. That Indy defense has actually been one of the top pressure units in the league so far. They lead the league in tackles for loss, and they're second in sacks. So they're getting to the quarterback, and with a rookie back there, and yes, he can run and he can scramble, but they'll have a game plan made up where they'll be able to contain him a little bit there too. And Stafford's not getting out of that pocket when Indy comes crashing. So it's going to be a defensive battle, I think. And I certainly lean Rams as well, but my play was on the under early here. And I still think it's good if you can get it at 46 or 46.5.
Oh, that's interesting. The Colts are way up there in sacks right now. Pretty good for them. They're not as bad as I thought they would be. I just still think they're bad. Let's move on to maybe one of the best games of the weekend. This is the one I really want to watch in the earlier slate. The Miami Dolphins at the Buffalo Bills. Bills -2.5. Totals at 53.5. Shawn, you have the floor for this one.
So if you watched the Miami-Denver game last week, you obviously saw the Dolphins put on a show. A lot of big broken plays, a lot of holes that were opened up. But if you look, at Miami, what they did the week before that, right, against a defense that has at least shown themselves capable earlier in the year against some decent competition. With New England, they actually were able to, contain it, those big plays. And I think Buffalo's defense is more on par with that than with Denver, obviously, at least at this point in the season. So I certainly see Buffalo, after what they did last week with Washington, even the first week against the Jets, that was a function of Josh Allen being careless with the football and turning it over. The reason they lost that game, they still held, and again, it's Zach Wilson, but they still held them just fine. So I think this Buffalo defensive unit is certainly good enough to slow down Miami the way New England was able to. And if they can keep Miami in that 20 to 24 point range, I certainly have faith in the Bills' offense being able to move the ball against Miami's defense, where they're a little bit more susceptible, especially to the passing side of things with Diggs and company for them. So I'm gonna lean Buffalo here strong, lay in the 2.5. If it gets up to the 3, may have a few more qualms on it, but I think Miami's still got to prove themselves before I'm going to get on that bandwagon, and I've still got Buffalo power ranked just a hair higher where that 2.5's in play for me because I've actually got this one at 3.5.
It's at 2.5 and 3 in a lot of places right now, but yeah, I my number is closer to pick 'em, and I hate being on teams that just scored 70 points. It's not like I have a massive sample size of this, but it's just the theory of it all. It's like, just blew out a team. You're probably relaxing a little bit more this week, a little bit more lax, even though you have a division game coming up. But at the same time, you look at the history, the Dolphins have been covering the last few games, and they've been playing extremely tough against Miami's been covering the games against Buffalo, playing them extremely tough. I think last year it was with Tua was gone. I think it was Skylar Thompson playing, and Buffalo was like a 7.5 or 8 point favorite, and I laid it with Buffalo. I was scared that Miami was going to possibly win, because I think I had Buffalo on the money line and something else too in a parlay. I think Buffalo eked it by 3 points, but this was with Skylar Thompson. I just think that Mike McDaniel is, and he's getting a lot of accolades in the media, but we were talking about it last year, how good he's done from a play calling perspective, and his San Francisco style hit you in the mouth. I'm not going against Miami. There's no way. I mean, if you want to, then that's your thing. I'd be my guess, but I have them in a teaser leg already from the Rams Monday night game. So I have that at plus 8.5 right now. I don't really need to get cute with that. I think I'm fine with that, dude. So
no, and I wouldn't. And let me just throw this in here. One of the other reasons I'm on there, like I said, is the defense. You look at what that Chargers offense did against Miami. They were able to run and gun with them. So I think Buffalo's defense is much better than San Diego's, and obviously there was a turnover issue there too. But if they come together and both units play where they're supposed to, I still have Buffalo ahead. So we're going to differ on this one, and hopefully it comes in where we both hit that. It can still happen that way.
Me and you have made a middle for this, so we'll see if this middle comes to fruition. But yeah, I mean, Miami maybe a little too high on their horse after this. You don't know. It's just not I hate betting against teams that look terrible one week, and I hate betting on teams that look great the week before. It's just not profitable to do that. It's teams are never as good as they were last week, and teams are never as bad as they were last week. Well, we'll find that out with the Bears and the Broncos. Let's move on to the next game. We have the Minnesota Vikings versus the Carolina Panthers. So I don't know why I haven't bet Minnesota yet. They're 4 on Betfred. They're 5 in the contest. You have 2 0-3 teams. Minnesota shouldn't be 0-3 just the way they are. They should have won last game. The last game was tough, but they should have beat Tampa. They over yarded them by over 100 yards. It's just Minnesota should be 1-2, maybe 2-1. They're not an 0-3 team, but they should be playing with their hair on fire and putting one on Carolina. I don't like the fact that Carolina's switching quarterbacks back to Bryce Young. I like it for their organization. Now that you're stupid enough to start him week 1, you can't go away from him. But I think this is why the spread moved up again from 3.5. It's because if Andy Dalton was playing, this would be 3.5 instead of 4, 4.5, 5. So my numbers say the pound Minnesota here. I think that the Carolina Panthers are maybe the second worst team behind the Bears. I don't know why I haven't yet. I think it's just that whole Kirk Cousins thing. But then again, you're playing at Kirk Cousins' best time at 1 p.m. on Eastern time, his time slot that he's good. So I'm gonna see what you got, and maybe you can talk me into something.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk into playing the Vikings. Look at what Carolina did last week, moving the ball with Andy Dalton and those receivers. Bryce Young isn't as capable as he is in the passing game. He might be able to sneak out a little bit, but the key here, like you said, is Kirk Cousins. And if you look at where he's actually sitting right now on the year for passing yards and touchdowns, he's up at the top. He's hitting his receivers. He's getting guys open. He's being able to open up some holes for that running game just through the pass. And I don't see any reason why they're not going to get right on this game. They've had 3 games they could have won. Haven't been able to close out any of them, which is exactly the opposite of what happened last year, right? They were 11-0 in 1-score games last year, and this year they're 0-3 to start the season. So watch that turnaround happen here, and they're too good of a team to not come out and just blast Carolina. The only thing that's going to bite you in the butt would be turnovers. Otherwise, I have this at -6. So for me to be able to get it down and get it early in that other number, I think is the window to play it is right now, because I think it's going to keep going that direction. But yeah, I'm on the Vikings.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the only side I look. And so I'm going to take that into consideration, Shawn. I might be with you on that one. So I'll go back to my thoughts on it, but we will put you down for a play on the Vikings here. Let's move on to the next game. We have the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Houston Texans. Houston's +3, -120. They're +2.5 in a lot of books. You know, it's funny. There's just a lot of +2.5s, +3s with the juice back and forth in a lot of these games this week. The total is 42.5. I'm just going to say that I think the Texans, played out of their minds last week. They're not that good of a team. And they are still pretty injured on the offensive line and a few other positions. I think CJ Stroud had a great game, but it was just one of those Jacksonville screw ups more than Houston Tech and Houston playing, that whole, now it's time for us to whoop your ass card, against them. And they did. And it was a big win for them. And I just think that the Steelers should be able to take care of business, but I can't trust the Steelers laying points that well. I think they played a weak Raiders team, and I actually think the Texans defense is better than the Raiders defense. It's a hard situation for me, and I wouldn't even tease the Texans. I'm going to lean to the Steelers here, but it's away, and it's their second away game in a row. So can Kenny Pickett keep going against a bad defense? Probably, but I can see some screw ups here. I think my number is probably around the 3.5, the Steelers. So what are your thoughts?
I'm leaning the other direction. I haven't pulled the trigger just yet. If I do, it'll be a small play. I think Houston overperformed last week, like you said. And the biggest concern for me is going to be on the Pittsburgh side, on the offensive side. I just haven't seen them move the ball with enough consistency. The game against Cleveland, the defense won that game for them, and they certainly could do it again here. With Houston having a rookie quarterback and that front seven being able to get home for sure. And Houston obviously struggled against Indianapolis a couple of weeks ago with the front seven that was able to get some pressure up the middle too. So, but for me, I think Houston's got a quarterback that is finding some receivers. Came out of the woodwork with Tank Dell. I hadn't really thought about that name at all coming into the season. But finding some complementary guys there with Nico Collins, Dell, and Woods. That's three decent options for him to find the ball to get the ball downfield, and he's been successful with it. So as long as they can contain some of that pressure, I think they'll be a little bit more successful than Pittsburgh on the offensive side. It's just if Pittsburgh's defense gets home, this could get ugly the other way too. So I'm not on it yet. I'm trying to talk myself into a small play on the Texans with the points, but otherwise it's going to be a pass for me also.
Or you tease them. If you're kind of thinking that, it's a good teaser leg for you. That's probably where it lies. We have the Tampa Bay Bucks at the New Orleans Saints. Saints -3. The total is 39.5. I'm going to pass on this game. Jameis Winston, if this was Carr, I bet it, but Winston could blow this game and he could win this game. I have no idea. I guess you can call it his revenge against the Buccaneers, but he's been a Saint for a while now. It's whatever. I'm passing.
Yeah, if I had to play it, it's going to be New Orleans, but I'm staying away too. I'm not sure exactly how much of a downgrade Winston's going to be, but the downgrade that I know is going to happen with him most likely is going to be a turnover somewhere, and it's probably going to be costly. So I'm going to stay away from it. I'm really high on New Orleans' defense this year. I was before the season. I actually bet them to have the least amount of points allowed in the NFL as one of my prop bets to start the year. So I think their defense is going to be able to contain Tampa Bay and Baker Mayfield and really slow them down, just like what happened to them last week. So it's New Orleans or nothing for me, but with Winston, I'm not playing it at all.
Yep. That's true. And I don't disagree with that. All right, let's move on to the next game. It's going to be, there's not actually a lot of morning games. It seems it's like we don't get into the afternoon slate. There's only 4 games in the afternoon and 9 or 10 in the morning. If you include Jacksonville, it's more. Geez. So I guess the red zone would be great to watch in the afternoon because you're going to literally watch every game minus the commercials pretty much. Let's move on to the Washington Commanders versus the Philadelphia Eagles. And the Eagles are -8.5. Actually, we already covered that game. Let's move on to the afternoon game. The Raiders versus the Chargers. Chargers -5. Total is 48.5. Shawn, go first.
All right. So Jimmy Garoppolo is still questionable as far as I have heard. I haven't heard if he's clear concussion protocol yet or not. I'm assuming he's probably not going to play. At least that's where I was at this morning when I was looking at stuff. So if he does not end up going, my lean here is certainly to the under, especially where it's still sitting right now. It's still kind of hanging out there around that 48 and a half. I certainly think the Chargers are going to get up and down the field here. But if Jimmy G's out, I think it's Hoyer and what's the other guy's name? Aiden O'Connell. Does that sound right? I'm not sure which one of those guys is going to get the rock if Garoppolo can't go. But Devontae Adams is really their only weapon on offense right now. And if somebody's not getting him the ball, I don't see how the Raiders are moving the ball up and down the field. And I'm going to take the bait right now because I think if he is ruled out, it's going to drop down below that 46, 45, somewhere in that range. And we'll see where it's at. But if I had to pick a side, I'm definitely going the Chargers. I think that offense, losing Williams hurts, but Herbert's proved he can get the ball to anybody at any time already this year. So
I'm thinking I'm more scared of Aiden O'Connell than Jimmy Garoppolo, to be honest with you, the way he looked in the preseason.
Preseason was good, right?
Yeah, I know you have to take it with a grain of salt, but hey, I never liked Jimmy Garoppolo that much. He was great with great systems, but he's not a good quarterback if you need him, like with a medium or bad system like the Raiders. I like the Chargers this game. My numbers are way off the charts that the Chargers should be beating this team by 7+ points. As a matter of fact, I think my algorithm has this at 8.1. My power ratings has this game, LA Chargers minus 7.5. So I took the Chargers. I like them at 5, 5.5, 6, whatever you can get. I think you should get it early because I'm not sure if Jimmy G is going to play, but it said he was present for practice. What does that mean? Like on the ESPN report says, Jimmy G was present for practice. Was he just watching practice? I don't know. Was he throwing the ball? He's probably doing something. So that makes me think he's going to play, Shawn. So I'll disagree with just that aspect of it. But the thing that's hard for me, even though my numbers are whacked up, these are just games that come down to stupidity. And that you can always throw the Chargers for stupidity there. And, it always comes down to the last play. It's just for some reason. But that was also a Derek Carr. And Derek Carr is a better quarterback than Jimmy Garoppolo. I've learned that. I thought it was kind of just robbing Peter to pay Paul, but I'm starting to figure out that Derek Carr was a better quarterback. And so now I do like it to the next, I guess from the 3 to the touchdown area, 6, 6.5, 7. So I have no problem with this one. We're going to play the Chargers here for 2 stars for my other play that we're going to be giving out here. So let's move on to the next game. We have the Arizona Cardinals at the San Francisco 49ers. Niners are minus 14. Total is 44. I mean, my numbers aren't that far off. I think I have this as 11 or 12-point game for the Niners. The Niners are just so good. My power ratings is like minus 15. My algorithm is closer to 11. Actually 10.556. I have Arizona plus 10.556. So I'm just using San Fran as my survivor play, and I don't think Arizona's going to strike lightning in the bottle 2 weeks in a row. So this is in San Fran. I'm not going to care. I'm not doing anything with the game. Just using it as a survivor, Shawn.
I'm staying away also. I don't think being a 14-point favorite back-to-back weeks and coming out smelling like roses is in the cards for Arizona. I expect to get bounced pretty handily, but I don't know if that's going to be by 10 or 12 or by 27. So I'm going to stay away also. I will tell you a little bit of a funny story about the Cardinals last week. On a different survivor pool I was in, or heard about, a guy got his pick in late. And the rule in this survivor pool, it's a $9 entry. I think there's 55,000 total in the middle. So a lot of people in it, but the rule is if you don't put a pick in, you get the biggest dog straight up in your survivor winnings. Well, guess who the biggest dog at the time of kickoff was last week? It was the Arizona Cardinals. So this guy forgot to put his pick in, thought he was done with Arizona, and they ended up winning, and he stayed alive in the pool. So there's my Arizona.
I love the rule.
Back of the week. Yeah.
I love the rule. That is wonderful. You're not out. They're like hating on you because you should get your picks in. But there you go. You didn't get it in. You could be out of the whole thing. They at least pick for you. They pick the biggest dog, but it ends up winning. That is wonderful.
And it ends up hitting.
Jesus. A lot of people probably picked the Cowboys too, so he took them out. You don't have to worry about using oh, I can't use the Cardinals again. Yeah, that's okay. Well, that's awesome.
Yep. Good time to use them.
Very good time to use them. All right. Well, Patriots, Cowboys minus 6.5, total 43.5. Sean, what do you have?
Yeah. I got me catching my breath from laughing in that cold. This is probably my favorite play of the week. I'm on the Patriots. I think that defense is strong enough to keep them in the game within a touchdown, no problem. You look at who they've played so far. They got a little bit of a break with the Jets without Aaron Rodgers. So did Dallas. But they've also played Miami, kept that game rather close. No issue there. Even getting up and down the field a little bit. And, Dallas has gotten beaten by the Cardinals now last week and got the New York Giants and the New York Jets under their belt, which obviously we've seen where those two teams are at. So I think getting 7 points here is way out of whack. I had it at 4.5 actually on my algorithm here. So I'm probably way higher on New England's defense than most people are, but I think they're certainly good enough to keep them in the game. They're fourth in yards per play, and Dallas losing Diggs hurts in their secondary as well. So if New England can come out and get 14, 17 points, I certainly think they're going to stay within that 7. And I also would look for Dak Prescott to throw an interception against that defense because he seems to certainly do throw so against solid defensive fronts. So if there's a prop play, it's probably going to be Dak Prescott on the interceptions, and I'm taking New England. I got them at the 7.
That's a good number. It's 6.5. I think it's a good number at 6.5, even though last year I played the Patriots and lost due to overtime. But it was just a fluke touchdown by CeeDee Lamb. But I think that the Cowboys did get a little bit better. However, they did lose Diggs, their good corner cover, and they are at home now. So that flips it a little bit from last year. I mean, I think there's a lot of similarities from last year's teams to this year. I think the Cowboys defense might be a little bit better minus the injury to Diggs. Patriots defense was good last year and they're good again this year. I think their offense should be a little bit better though under Bill O'Brien. That's what you're kind of hoping for. The Patriots, they drove all over the Jets last week. They were a misleading score. They should have beat the Jets by a lot more and they didn't. So it's a good number in my opinion for a book. But, I guess if I had to take it, I'd take the Patriots if gone to the head. So even though my perfect number is 7 via power rating, or I would go lean towards the Patriots. Let's
hang in there with Philly, hung in there with Miami. They're going to hang in there with Dallas. So
they're going to hang in with Dallas. They did hang in with Philly, really good, and yeah, I mean Miami was a good game too. It's they're a good team. The Patriots are a good team. Chiefs, and when I say good, they're a little above average. I don't think there's not a lot of great teams, but here's a great team. The Chiefs at Jets, and the Jets are plus 9.5, total 41.5. Why are the Jets 9.5 when they don't have a quarterback? Sean, can you explain this to me?
Because supposedly they still have a defense. I guess that's my theory anyway. Jacksonville holding to Kansas City hit to 17, probably kept this down a little bit. We had a big breakout game from Kansas City last week, hanging 41 against the Bears, which isn't saying a whole lot. But I think that's where the play's at, and they're trying to get people in. This is one of those fishy lines where I looked at it and went, "Gosh, I really want to play the Chiefs right now," but something in my brain just said I can't pull the trigger. I had it at 10.5, which is within a point of where it is right now. But I'm going to lay off and kind of wait and see where this goes. I'm guessing it's going to get pushed up, and I'm not going to play it, but. I think it's strictly based off the Jets defense keeping them in the game, which they did against Buffalo week 1. And that's the only way they're going to be able to stay in games. And if I had to pick one, if I had to lean, it's going to be Kansas City. And maybe it's taking the under here. Little bit of a look at that also. So.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I can figure, the only team that's going to beat themselves is the Chiefs. Do they just not care and screw around this game? They're a Super Bowl champ. They're probably celebrating and just not taking the season as seriously as like a team that wants to win the Super Bowl. I have a premium play in this, so I'm not going to give it away. But I will say that it is strange seeing the Jets this small of a dog when they have no quarterback, and all the talk is the defense giving up on them. I don't know if that's true. That could be a bunch of noise, and usually I avoid that and fade and take the dog. But like I said, I'm not going to give out any more information on this one. Let's go to the Monday night game. Seahawks versus Giants. Giants -1, total 47. Sean, this is another game where I have the Seahawks a lot better team just from what I saw. The Giants did come back against the Cardinals, and maybe the Cardinals are not the worst team and not it was more of a choke situation for the Cardinals. The Cardinals were beating them up. I don't think the Giants are really any good. I think Tony Dayball is pretty good, but the Giants have some issues. Obviously, still have some injuries. Seattle's also has some injuries. I think I'm not going to completely decide until I see the injury report done, but I have a strong lean to Seattle. My numbers are past the 3 for Seattle in this game, Shawn.
Yeah, I'll give out my play. I am on Seattle. No questions asked, and I actually locked it in right before we started because it was at a pick'em and it went to 1 right before we started this up. I was kind of hoping it'd go that direction, and I think it could still bounce back and forth a little bit back to a pick'em before game time with injury news. But there's the superior team, and they have the only grouping out here that can make a difference, and that's their offensive grouping. Geno Smith, well, he certainly is prone to turn the ball over, can push the ball downfield. He proved that last year. He's shown it again this year. They've got the weapons on the outside. Walker and running back, they can move the ball and carve teams up. And the Giants, Daniel Jones, whatever he is, $152 million. I don't even know what it is. That was a horrible time. I mean, why would you sign this guy to a long-term contract for the 4 years?
Nobody else was going to. It's like the market wanted Daniel Jones.
So maybe he runs like Josh Allen. Well, he sure doesn't throw like Josh Allen. I can tell you that much. Or read defenses like him. And they're going to get home on him too. And I had this at 3, so getting it right now at +1 is a 4-point swing in my direction, even being on the road. So also homecoming for Geno Smith. Played with the Jets, played with the Giants. Maybe wants to come home to the Meadowlands and show him something. So it's a definite go for me on Seattle. I am in 100%. Probably my second best play of the week after the Patriots. So,
I love that angle, dude. Homecoming. Didn't think about that. Yeah, he did play for them for a while. He's been in New York, and he wants to show them who they really are because they dumped on him, and they were bad organizations at the time. So we're starting to see it wasn't all Geno's fault here. I think Geno's a little bit better than what we thought. Now he's not elite or nothing, but he's an average quarterback. Good stuff, man. Well, what a great breakdown of a full week of games. Then we finally get into the buys, and we'll have a little bit less games per week. But Shawn, great stuff. Where can our listeners get your great information and media?
Yeah, so right on the site here at theoddsbreakers.com, we're finishing up baseball strong. We just hit our first 5 play, only 5 play today. The Royals cashed. So we're on a nice little 5-0 streak there in MLB to end the season. Let's see if we can close it out on a full winning streak without losing anymore. But at theoddsbreakers.com is where you can find my picks. I'm on Twitter at The Great Kanaki, so check me out there. Always answer direct messages over there. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Appreciate everything.
All right, everybody. Shawn, great stuff. We'll be texting this week as usual. Best of luck to you, bud.
Thanks. You too, Kiev. Have a great evening.